Hey, welcome to DSR Daily. It's a new week. Everything's going to be great, right, Riley?
You bet, David.
And Minna, you're sure it's going to be a great week, right? Because nothing bad happened over the weekend, right?
I mean, there's nothing to lead me to believe otherwise.
Yeah, nothing. Everything's fine. I'm David Rothkopf. That was Riley Fessler. The other one's Minna Stein. And we're all real optimistic because, what could go wrong with Dan Bongino as deputy director of the FBI? Complete raving lunatic. But it's like he's deputy director and he's probably got to get confirmed, and that can't go wrong. And in Germany, the right wing party didn't win everything; they just went up a lot, so that's not bad. And Trump's running a purge in the Defense Department. What could go wrong there? And the Doge guys, they're off at the Social Security Department. If you're over 65, well, you might worry about it, but the rest of us, who cares? You know what I'm saying? I'm right, Riley. You don't care about Social Security.
Nah,
You're not
I've
getting
got a
Social
while.
Security. It's never going to happen for you, buddy. Same for you, Minna. It's just not a thing. You'll pay into it, and then they'll get rid of it, or they'll make the retirement age 97. Anyway, why don't we go to the real stories, and then I'm sorry to rant with you, but let's get through all this nonsense.
Yeah, tough weekend. I hear you. President Trump announced a major shakeup of U.S. military leadership, firing General C.Q. Brown, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and other high-ranking officers, including several admirals and generals, while nominating Dan Raisin Kane as the new top military officer. This move, which has been condemned by Democratic lawmakers, is seen as a political effort to reshape the military in line with Trump's America First policies and to eliminate diversity and inclusion initiatives. The decision comes after Trump's criticism of, quote, woke generals and is part of a broader plan to overhaul military leadership, including the replacement of top positions like the U.S. Navy's first female leader, Admiral Lisa Franchetti.
Yeah, look, this has never happened before. This is essentially a political culling of the top people at the Defense Department, and it seems like it's only the beginning. As it happens, there's six or whatever. I think it's six people on the Joint Chiefs, and one of them was a black man. He was the chairman. They got rid of him, and one of them was a woman, Lisa Franchetti, who was the chief of naval operations, and they got rid of her. So what does it leave us with? It leaves us with all white men. They also took a guy who is not qualified really to be the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. He's a lieutenant general from the National Guard, but who has some kind of ties with Hegseth, who's a National Guard guy, and they put him in. Clearly, they put him in because they think he's going to be loyal to Trump. That's the overarching criteria they're seeking. And the politicization of the military is obviously a very dangerous move. Perhaps the biggest tell in all of this was they got rid of the judge advocates general in each of the services so they could put in their own people. Why is that? Well, the judge advocates general are the ones that administer military justice, and they want to send a message that the orders that they give are going to be judged to be legal orders by the JAGs. Of course, Trump is the guy who wanted to fire at protesters during the Black Lives Matter protests in 2020. He wanted to fire at Mexican immigrants when they were coming across the border. He wanted to fire missiles at Mexico. So all manner of mayhem could take place within the Pentagon. So that's not exactly a pick-me-up story. Minna, I don't know if we're going to go back to you again. Riley, what do you got? Something to lift us up.
I've got bad news for you.
Uh-oh.
President Trump appointed Dan Bongino, a conservative podcaster, commentator, and staunch Trump ally, as deputy director of the FBI, serving under newly confirmed director Kash Patel. Bongino, a former NYPD officer and Secret Service agent with no prior FBI experience, has promoted false claims about the 2020 election and conspiracy theories. His appointment, which does not require Senate confirmation, places two individuals without FBI backgrounds in the agency's top roles.
Without
Bongino.
FBI background, by the way, without management background, without the ability to run a giant organization like this, and with deeply, deeply questionable, not only views, but sort of personalities, characters. These are fringy people. If you wanted to create like an American secret police, this is who you'd have to put in charge because anybody else would oppose it. So if you want to think about where they're going with this, you've got to consider extreme possibilities. As I blue skied out earlier today when I saw this news, it's a good thing Trump does not have a rabid dog, because if he did, the rabid dog would have been appointed to FBI leadership. Did you want to say something else, Riley? Because I just couldn't contain myself.
Nah, you pretty much covered it.
All right.
Not
Well,
much else to add.
She surely has something uplifting.
Oh, surely. In Germany's recent national election.
Shirley. Go on.
Airplane.
I'm glad you recognize that. I'm glad there's a new generation that appreciates low comedy.
It's a great movie.
Yeah, great movie. Riley's Googling it as you speak. Anyway, go on.
In Germany's recent national election, the conservative leader, Friedrich Merz, secured
by recent, she means yesterday. But yeah, go on.
Yes, secured a narrow victory, while the far-right party, Alternative for Germany, saw historic gains, doubling its support to become a significant force. Chancellor Olaf Scholz conceded defeat as his center-left Socialist Democrats suffered their worst results since World War II, while Merz faces the challenge of forming a coalition government. Despite Alternative for Germany's success, Merz has ruled out any partnership with the party, setting the stage for complicated coalition talks as the nation grapples with economic stagnation and migration concerns.
Yeah, I mean, this is, good news, bad news, right? The good news is Alternative for Germany, the party that Musk and Vance and the other guys in the Trump administration embraced, who also happen to have neo-Nazi roots, did not win outright. But they did go to a very high vote total, and they did get a lot of votes, not just in East Germany, which is sort of their base of strength, but also in Western Germany and among young males. Okay. Young males, particularly young white males, seem to be a real problem for countries everywhere. I wonder why that is. Could it be because their brains are floating around in a stew of testosterone? They haven't learned anything, including their own fallibility yet? Yes, it is. Young white males are among the most dangerous people on the planet, followed closely by young other males. Sorry about this, Riley. It's just true. Fortunately, you're not so young anymore. So, but right, Riley. Anyway, the good news is, of course, that this guy Merz, although he's from the CDU, which is a center right party, has got his head screwed on right. He will form a coalition with the Social Democrats. They will, they may reach out to the Green Party and have an even bigger coalition. But, he has already said that he's deeply troubled by the noises Trump is making about NATO, that Europe's got to defend itself. He will take a more forward-leaning stance on that. And if you're really looking for good news, I do think that we can say, well, if the Trump administration continues the way that it is, and it really screws up as many things as it looks like it's going to screw up, it may not ultimately be good news for these right-wing parties everywhere as people start saying, holy mackerel, we don't want to do that. So give it a couple of years. These kind of victories tend to produce results. And the results often are not good for the right, as happened in 2016, which was followed by a bunch of elections in which Trump, MAGA, and the Republicans didn't do so well. Let's turn to our young white male.
As the voice of young white males everywhere.
Yeah, that's you.
The Trump administration appointees leading U.S. aid announced the firing of 2,000 U.S.-based employees and placed thousands of foreign service officers and direct hires worldwide on paid leave, effective immediately, with exceptions only for mission-critical programs and core leadership. These drastic measures, part of the broader effort to freeze nearly all U.S. foreign aid, follows a federal judge's ruling allowing the administration to proceed with layoffs and the shutdown of overseas operations, forcing employees abroad to return home, where many expect to be terminated. Secretary of State Rubio has promised a 90-day review process to resume some aid, but details remain unclear, leaving employees and partner organizations in limbo.
Yeah, 90-day review process. Think about what that does. If you're aware, somebody waiting for medical treatment that you need to stay alive, and the State Department's going to take 90 days to review it and may or may not provide it, that's bad news for you. If you're starving and the State Department has in big warehouses, as it does, large amounts of food that will spoil in 90 days, that's not very good news for you. If you're, a group that's trying to reduce the amount of extremism in your country or to push back on the influence of non-democratic forces, and you get your funding pulled for that period of time, I got bad news for you. They're not going to ever restore that because they're not actually pro-democratic. They're not actually anti-autocratic as Americans typically have been. If you're an American and you're concerned about our influence in the world, this could be a problem because we're not in the game anymore, and other countries are going to step right in with funding and money, including most notably the Chinese, and we're going to lose influence place after place. And even in the places that want to deal with us rather than someplace else, their conclusion about the United States that went from Trump to Biden to Trump is we are no longer a reliable partner. We are no longer a reliable source of support. And that is going to damage America's leadership standing in the world for the rest of your lives. I don't care how old you are. It's bad news. It's also illegal, whether the court let it happen or not. The reality is that the Congress determines how much money gets spent. The Congress allocates the funds. The Congress determines that USAID should exist. And allowing Trump to shut down agencies funded and authorized by Congress, but just by fiat, not as a result of any process, is going to lead to this happening in other agencies, and others are going to suffer. And I got news for you. The people who are going to suffer the most are vulnerable Americans. It's not just going to be people in countries far, far away from here. It's going to be old people. It's going to be sick people. It's going to be disabled people. It's going to be people who are discriminated against. It's going to be people in red towns and red states and red districts that depend more on this funding. It's going to be people who had jobs and who are losing their jobs by wholesale cuts that are not based on any calculus whatsoever about government efficiency or what is needed. It is just based on the decisions of a bunch of 18, 19, 20, whatever year old young white males, there they are once again, working for Doge, who have been given a mandate to cut without any thought behind it at all. Minna?
Elon Musk's weekend email to federal workers demanding they justify their jobs in writing triggered confusion and panic as various agency heads issued conflicting guidance, with some instructing employees not to comply until further notice. The move has led to criticism from legal experts, Democrats, and labor advocates who argue that Musk lacks the authority to make such demands and is violating federal employment law. Despite support from Trump loyalists, the directive has been widely seen as an attempt to undermine government bureaucracy and has caused frustration amongst federal employees.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Nobody works for Elon Musk. He's not even really in the government. We're not even sure what his status is as a special government employee, even if that's legal and, what his conflicts are and all of that kind of stuff. But to send an email to everybody sort of saying, you report to me and you're going to have to justify, the work you're doing to me, is it's a leftover from Musk taking over companies where he was able to do this kind of thing. These people in these agencies work for the people who run the agencies, not for Musk. The people who run the agencies do not just report to the president, no matter what you may think of the unitary executive. They were confirmed by the Congress. That means they also report to the Congress, and there's congressional oversight of what they do. And Congress has a lot of control over the number of people who work there and so forth, at least in a normal world. Furthermore, you think people are going to actually be able to justify in 48 hours, with what their activities are, and they're going to be able to go and do some thoughtful analysis of all of this? Of course not. This is a fear tactic designed to make Doge, make people quake whenever Doge enters a place. Well, guess what? They already do. That they already do, because you've got a bunch of unqualified yahoos going into a bunch of cabinet agencies and essentially saying, we may shut you down. We may fire a bunch of people. We may fire you. We may shut down your funding. You've got no recourse. We've got no idea what the hell we're doing. Let's see what happens. And that's what's happening in the government. Now, it is producing backlash in places. Republican Congress people are going back to their districts, and the people are going, "Hey, what the hell is going on there?" And Trump's poll ratings are going down. Musk's poll ratings are in the toilet already because he's crazy. I mean, dude's crazy. It's, I don't know, it's ketamine induced, or it's, his upbringing induced, or it's too much money. Maybe there's something called money poisoning that makes your brain go whack, because you are like, oh, well, I'm rich, so I must be brilliant, and you must listen to what I'm saying. Whatever it is, he's terrible at what he's doing. He's doing a bad job. And sooner or later, it's going to have real political consequences, not just, sort of out there, abstractly. But Republicans are going to start going to Trump, say, stop this, I'm going to lose. If he starts meddling with, as the Republicans in the House also seem to be inclined to do, Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, these guys are writing their own political death warrants, because people depend on those things. Those programs are hugely popular because those programs are decent. Those programs are what all governments do to take care of the people in their societies that need taking care of. But we're not at that point yet. And between now and when we arrive at that point, there's going to be a lot of mayhem, a lot of unhappiness, a lot of human suffering. If you see it, talk about it, share it. That's where we are in America right now. We've got to get the word out that what is happening is not politically significant. It's humanly significant. It's significant in terms of the lives of the people we know in the cities we live in. That's what people have got to see, that this has got real life consequences, is reckless and dangerous. And we'll talk about it as it happens here, and we won't pull any punches until they pull the plug on us. Until then, thanks, Riley. Thanks, Minna. Thanks for getting us started on a great week. And we'll be back with more here on the DSR Network each and every day this week. Until then, bye-bye.